This is ANCAP-SU, and we're going to talk now about the optimism that's prevailing in Bolsonaro's camp. Bolsonaro, who is under house arrest, seems to be optimistic and is seeing light at the end of the tunnel. What does this mean for us? It means that negotiations are actually taking place. As I told you, he had an examination that showed he has gastritis or something like that. I'm not sure what exactly. We know that there are many negotiations going on in Brasilia, and things seem to be moving towards some resolution. Bolsonaro's allies have asked the White House for time to pass the anti-Supreme Court agenda in Congress. The peace package in Congress is what Andre Sadi is referring to here. But it seems that Eduardo Bolsonaro spoke with people in the United States, requesting a 3-week deadline to make arrangements and vote on amnesty here in Brazil. Will this work out? Will they be able to pull it off? Because our perception of Congress is the opposite, right? Congress is opposed to approving the censorship law that Lula wants to implement, establishing a federal agency. Let's understand this case here. This news was suggested by Brazil, is the most corrupt country in the world. Peter Sembarba has connections, and several other people, thanks to those who suggested news on our website, on visão.com. And thanks to you who are watching our video. If you like our content, please leave your like and subscribe to our channel. Well then, here it is. A Veja report says Bolsonaro has regained optimism and is seeing a light at the end of the tunnel. That's what I tell you. Of course, no one is going to openly say that they're going to back down. The STF will never say that it's going to back down. The Lula government is not going to back down. Even within the CTF, Alexandre de Moraes is definitely not going to back down. He's not just talking, he really won't back down. But the other ministers, people are negotiating because they see things are going downhill, and it can't continue like this. The Lula government, for Lula himself, wouldn't back down on anything. But the problem is that people are already doing behind-the-scenes negotiations, right? So it says here, look. Under house arrest, former President Bolsonaro took advantage of Father's Day to gather his family. Even city councilors Carlos Bolsonaro from Rio and Jair Renan from Balneário Camboriú were in Brasilia to honor their father. The only one absent was Eduardo Bolsonaro, who moved to the United States. Despite the restrictions imposed by the justice system on the patriarch and the imminence of Bolsonaro's conviction by the CF, in other words, the left-wing people can't forget to mention that he's going to be convicted. Whatever else, they always say that for a reason, okay? It's because they want to plant in everyone's mind that it's inevitable, that there's no alternative. And I'm telling you, until about 2 months ago, I would have said there really wasn't an alternative, that they were going to convict Bolsonaro for sure. Nowadays, I'm not so sure anymore, okay? Now I'm thinking it's going to be difficult, but anyway. The press, of course, continues wanting to condemn Bolsonaro. Obviously, they'll keep talking about it, right? The family meeting took place in a harmonious atmosphere, and even the First Lady, Michelle Bolsonaro, is being considered for electoral ventures, which served as a pretext for political discussions. Even though he's frustrated with the legal situation, Bolsonaro showed optimism about the future. He made it clear that he's finally seeing light at the end of the tunnel, meaning a chance to be amnestied and regain his political rights sooner or later. This turnaround would be possible thanks to a combination of factors. The revolt by Bolsonaro's supporters in Congress. People don't forgive, right? The opposition's obstruction in Congress has brought the debate back to the amnesty topic, which could gain momentum, and if the captain's allies succeed in convincing the centrists to join this venture, right? What would they get in exchange for ending the privileged forum as well? A broad and general amnesty would have been revived by the rebellion and the strength of the Bolsonaro supporters' evaluation. As previously discussed, it seems the option is to pass this amnesty in Congress, excluding those who planned crimes. Because Hugo Moura discarded many things, leaving only some remaining. In addition, the pressure from President Donald Trump. It's evident that this changed the situation. Along with these actions, Trump indicated that he may tighten the pressure on Brazil if the captain doesn't resolve his judicial issues. Brazil has some very problematic laws. They arrested the president and are trying to keep him imprisoned. This is political persecution. They're trying to harm Bolsonaro. I find this terrible. The reporter comments that, as usual, this optimism will face a reality check. The reporter thinks there's nothing to prevent the application of the Magnitsky Act to target Bolsonaro. Reality will hit hard. It will be a harsh reality check. Bolsonaro's allies requested time from the White House to approve the agenda in Congress. Andrea Saad calls it an anti-Supreme Court package, but it's the peace package that Flavio Bolsonaro proposed. The package negotiated by Bolsonaro supporters with former House Speaker Arthur Lira includes the PEC on prerogatives. The PEC aims to require authorization from the Chamber or Senate before deputies can be prosecuted or criminally investigated. Under the Constitution, these cases are handled by the Supreme Court. The change in privileged jurisdiction aims to remove cases against lawmakers from the Supreme Court. There are ongoing discussions about the cases against former President Jair Bolsonaro. The amnesty aims to exonerate those convicted and under investigation for the January 8th attacks, potentially including Bolsonaro and others involved. This is the package that lawmakers are trying to pass in Congress. We know it's being negotiated, including with SDF officials. There have already been signals from the CF to let this package pass. The question is, will they be able to get this approved in Congress? That's the question, right? Until these measures advance, the Bolsonaro group in Washington should continue working to expand the scope of the Magnitsky Law imposed against Alexandre de Moraes. In other words, Alexandre de Moraes will be targeted. For now, they won't take action against anyone else, any other judge, not even Tulira or Gamoda. Alcalumbre, nobody for now. They will focus on this. But anyway, that's it. And why 3 weeks? Because it's approximately the time remaining before Bolsonaro's trial at the CF, scheduled to begin on September 2nd. In other words, they're going to see if they can wrap this up before Bolsonaro's trial. Bolsonaro supporters believe that if Bolsonaro is convicted, the Magnitsky Law will target all the justices who voted for the former president's conviction. I don't rule that out. That's the situation, right? The meeting, according to the blog's investigation, lasted an hour. The duo delivered a report on how banks were not complying with the Magnitsky Law in Brazil. And Besson said he would handle it. In other words, the strategy appears to be this: to have the amnesty vote in the chamber by September 2nd. I don't know if that will happen, okay? Because the truth is that Hugo Moda continues to insist that the FELCA law must be voted on, right? The censorship law they're trying to pass, which is an absurd law. I'll talk about that in another video, but that seems to be the priority over there, right? Another curious thing is precisely the SDF's calculation to schedule Bolsonaro's trial to coincide with September 7th. So you remember that a few days ago we published an article here saying that, look, they sent a message to Zandel that this matter is moving too fast. He's accelerating this process too much. Normally the process, the Mariel case, hasn't been voted on yet, hasn't been judged yet. Many cases are happening much more quickly. And the problem is that this will impact September 7th, which will have demonstrations. The schedule set for Jair Bolsonaro's trial will cause the sessions to be interspersed with the right-wing demonstration planned for September 7th, which could lead to increased tensions between Bolsonarism and the CFF. But according to sources close to Cristiano Zanin and Alexandre de Moraes, neither the SDF security nor the justices consider the coincidence of dates a risk factor. The priority for the justices is to conclude the process before October, so that Bolsonaro's fate, most likely a conviction, will have already been decided 1 year before the 2026 elections. In fact, their problem is what I told you. They know they are in a race against time, that this case against Bolsonaro has no future, that there will be amnesty, there will be solutions, and more than that. The longer it takes, the smaller their chance of achieving it. So they want to convict Bolsonaro as quickly as possible, no matter what. Because even if Cid Gomes is later granted amnesty and Bolsonaro is allowed to run in 2026, they'll still be able to say that Bolsonaro was also convicted. Bolsonaro, the coup plotter, convicted by the CF and so on, he was only released later due to a congressional amnesty. It's more about creating a political platform, right? Although there's no rule for this, Lula was convicted at the second instance in January 2018 and arrested in April, 6 months before the elections. The ministers believe that 1 year's advance notice, besides being symbolic, provides a safety margin. Nonsense. The point here is exactly that they're afraid, because when Lula was convicted, everyone knew he had done something wrong. Even left-wing supporters were distancing themselves from Lula when he was convicted. The evidence against Lula was very clear, so it didn't cause any commotion. Lula's arrest among his direct supporters, it's true, there was all that drama at the Union Hall in Sao Paulo, but outside of that, there wasn't any problem. In Bolsonaro's case, they know there will be, and they know that as the elections draw near, this situation becomes more complicated. Here's the thing. The calculation takes into account the fact that one of the consequences of a criminal conviction is ineligibility. And since Bolsonaro was already declared ineligible by the TSE in 2 cases, it is considered behind the scenes that there is a risk the decision could be reversed after Cássio Nunes took command of the Electoral Court. I warned you about this from the beginning, right? This can happen. Cássio Nunes, as president of the TSE, can, in theory, overturn these TSE convictions, hence Alexandre de Moraes' concern about convicting him at any cost in the STF before the elections. And again, journalists speak very optimistically. Not that the conviction is certain that he'll be convicted and will be ineligible. You can see that this is their goal. They don't want Bolsonaro to participate in the 2026 election ever again, because they know that if he participates, he'll win. And so, this is their concern. And this is what I tell you. This makes explicit the political persecution character of this process, and more than that, this shows that even the left itself is already somewhat doubting this issue of whether Bolsonaro will really be convicted. This is what I'm saying. If this were the situation 2 months ago, I would say that Bolsonaro would definitely... Nowadays, I'm not so sure anymore, you know. Even Transparency International spoke out here. Look, Bolsonaro's imprisonment seems like an attempt to silence him and has weak foundations. They are talking here about Bolsonaro's house arrest, right? Bolsonaro was placed under house arrest on August 4th, because on August 3rd, there were demonstrations, and he allegedly said something on the phone to someone, and even Transparency International, which is far left, understood that this looked strange, you know? Anyway, notice that this decision on Bolsonaro's house arrest, Alexandre de Moraes hasn't even sent it to the PGR or anyone on the first panel yet. Why is he holding it back? Because he's desperate. He knows there will be massive demonstrations on the 7th. He wants to find a way to prevent this kind of thing. Although the press and Alexandre de Moraes try to convey the idea that no, everything is happening normally, nothing has changed, and so forth. The truth is, they know they're in trouble and don't know how long they can keep this show going. Thanks for watching the video to the end. In addition to liking, sharing, and subscribing to the channel, consider becoming a member with plans starting at $1.99. Click the Become a Member button below to learn about the terms and benefits of channel membership. For more information about our project, visit our websites shown on screen.